Rub-a-dub-dub, it's three ghouls, but no tub. Here's your Christmas spot on the Diamond Select the night before Christmas. Lock, shock, and barrel. Lock, shock, and barrel are the world's greatest trick-or-treaters, as fond of the trick as they are of the treat. Although not wholly trusted by the residents of Halloween Town, they are still nonetheless employed by Jack Skellington to deliver Santa Claus, which they managed to accomplish on the second try. The Easter Bunny was not amused. Told to make Santa comfortable while Jack handled Christmas, the trio instead brought Santa to Oogie Boogie, a Halloween hardliner who takes scariness to extremes. Well, it finally happened. St. Nick's been sidelined, and you can thank these three for stealing him. Before we get down to the details on the terrible trio here, we're going to take the tape measure, and we'll see how tall they actually stand. Judging, I'm sure already, by the condition of the box you saw at the beginning of this review. The box is pretty old. The figures inside are also equally old. This set was released in 2018, so we're coming up to 7 years. A little behind on looking at it, but I'm looking at it now. The tape measure, though, starting first with Lock, is giving us figures that's about 6 inches. I mean, Lock alone is 6 inches in height, and he's about, I would say, 16 centimeters tall. By no surprise, Shock is the tallest. She's, after all, wearing a witch's hat. That, though, gives us a figure that's about 8.5 inches in height, or about 21.5 centimeters tall. Barrel, my favorite of the trio, is the shortest of the three. He's 5 inches in height, or about 13 centimeters tall. I know I did say Santa was sidelined. I actually just have him off to the side. So let's slide over Lock. Let's slide over Shock. Not knocking any of these over in the process, unfortunately. Let's also bring in over Barrel, just to free up enough space to also bring in Santa Claus. Now, these were all released by Diamond Select. I actually originally had a display base for Santa Claus, but I don't know where the display base ended up. So I've just got myself like a little standee stand behind him, just so you can see just how much bigger he is than Lock, Shock, and Barrel. I don't even know how they'd even be able to fit him inside that sack. You know, speaking of fitting, I don't know how they'd be able to fit the bathtub inside the box along with the figures. Diamond felt the same way, though, too. Because while Lock, Shock, and Barrel do come included with their Halloween masks, no tub can be found at all. I'm sure I could probably find a bathtub of the same size that at least could accommodate these three. I mean, what are the chances I could find like a bathtub about yay big, about yay wide? I don't know. Maybe you could have to check the Home Sense or some place that sells miniaturized bathtubs. But like I said, though, they do come include their Halloween mask. Here's one bit of a bummer that comes with these figures, that while the Halloween masks look pretty cool, there's no real way to attach them onto the figure's face. They have no strings, for example. Magnets also would have been one idea I was kind of thinking, like, had they only found a way to put a magnet embedded into the plastic. But unfortunately, though, the first figure that we're looking at happens to be the figure that has the hardest time to wear the mask, and that being Shock. I mean, you could put it on his face, but it's not going to stay in place. You could probably put a little bit of Mac tack, a little sticky tack on the inside of that. I'm sure that might even just help to keep that in place. But you would think that that would be one thing that Diamond Select would have thought of right away. A strap on the back would have been the ideal solution. Or even, like I said, if they had put a magnet embedded into his forehead, ooh, that would have been painful. And then maybe put a magnet right there. That would have been enough to keep this in place. I mean, I sort of have cheated with Barrel. Barrel's probably one of the easiest, and even really Shock for that matter, where you can take like the mask and put them on their face, and they generally stay. But Lock, unfortunately, I kind of had to cheat. I just put like his hand up to his face, just kind of move it in front of his face to kind of keep the mask in place. But I'm going to have to devise a long-term solution if I want to have these things on display in December. Maybe I might even just put, I don't know, maybe a little elastic cording on the back of it. Because depending on really how you'd like to have these displayed, really, when I think of Lock, Shock, and Barrel, I'd like to consider them always wearing really the Halloween masks. While the faces look really good, the Halloween masks, I feel, look so much better. You can see the way they painted the teeth on like Lock's mask, for example. It looks really good. There's a little bit of staining on the inside, and I think a lot of that has to really do with the fact that they've molded the mask in white plastic, and then they just sort of have spray painted over top of it. It does then result in a little bit of the spray paint on the inside of the mask. I mean, it's really a place that you're never going to be able to see it anyways. But yeah, man, does this ever suck. You really can't attach this. I mean, I was even kind of thinking at one point, maybe if I just forced it against his face, the friction alone would keep it in place, but no, it just falls completely off. As for, though, Lock's face, I think they've done a nice job of painting these figures, considering really that we're coming up to 7 years when this was first released. The hair sculpted well on the back. Obviously, you can see that they've sculpted the hair here, but they've only really painted the red on the top. I think that's accurate to the way it looks in the movie. I mean, really, for that, if that was the case, they should have just left this off without texturing it at all. The face, unfortunately, though, for Locke, it sits really loose. I mean, while it still has a rotation back and forth, certainly the collector's dolls, and we looked at a couple here on this channel. We looked at like Sally, Jack. We also looked, of course, at Santa Claus, if you want to go back and watch those reviews again. Certainly of the head sculpts, these are the loosest of the variety. You can also see as well, because they're using a basic body, that the head for Locke isn't quite the same color for the rest of his body. His neck is clearly more of a brighter white. They are wearing, though, real fabric outfits, which is a nice touch. I mean, they seem just to be attached by Velcro, so you just undo the Velcro, and if you wanted to, I suppose you could take them off completely. I mean, one of the end results of obviously using a colored fabric is that they're going to leave a staining behind on the bodies. Again, you probably would not end up seeing this. Had it really just been me opening this up, the jacket, you probably wouldn't even know that there was a stain to the body. Again, he does have gripping hands. There's no additional accessories at all. I really feel like they probably could have included a few extra little bells and whistles, a few treats under the tree that some of these figures could have had something to hold. I mean, I guess I probably could come up with like little bags or something I could put in their hands just so it looks like they're carrying around something. I also noticed, though, with Locke that his feet are very loose. This foot more is the looser of the two. And I always feel like he always gets his tail stepped on. Where I go to put the figure down, for example, and he ends up stepping on his tail. And sometimes that does cause poor Locke to take a tumble. Anyways, for the articulation, though, for Locke, head's going to rotate back and forth. The arms, of course, are going to move forward and back this way as well. There's no bend in the elbow. There's no swivel in the hands. They're very limited when it comes to posability. The sell of really the collector's dolls from Diamond Select is the fact that you're getting larger figures and you're also getting real fabric outfits. Legs move forward and back, and that's basically all you're going to be getting. There is no swivel. I kind of wish that they could have at least had rotations in the ankles, rotations in the hands, but unfortunately that's not what you're going to be getting here. So let's just get Locke to stand. Again, he seems to be the one that stands the hardest. We'll also move over Beryl because we're beginning him more. We'll get to him more in a second. Then on to Shock. Shock. Oh, there we go. I knew he was going to fall. Getting, though, a closer look at Shock now. She does have the witch's hat. The witch's hat is non-removable. I did say, though, that Locke seemed to be the hardest one to hold this mask. Actually, I did notice, though, that Shock was the easiest one. Now, I was talking a little bit about friction. If you put the friction, the little bit of force against her face, she seems to do an okay job. I did this at the beginning of the review as well. An okay job of holding the mask. You sort of have to have it wedged against her nose. But I mean, like, again, like, this could have so easily been solved had they just put a little elastic strap behind it. But again, you kind of just put a little bit of pressure on this. There's really nothing. I mean, I guess you could also have the mask a little bit. Beryl is really the easiest just to cheat with because you basically just rest it against his fabric top. But like Shock, I was doing this so easier before. Why am I having now a struggle? Of course, I know, because the camera's rolling. But yeah, you just put a little bit of pressure on this, and that seemed to do the fix of keeping the mask in place. Obviously now it's not going to be doing that job at all. I could probably, again, put a little bit of sticky tack in there. I really didn't want to put sticky tack just because, like, some sticky tack that you use end up staining the plastic, and I really don't want that happening. I mean, I think Shock probably looks the nicest, I think, without the mask, so even if you choose not to have the mask on her, yeah, it's just a shame that this doesn't stay properly in place. Ah, does it? Does it? No, it doesn't. We'll just put it off to the side. I like the way that they've actually rooted her hair. These little straggly bits of spaghetti sticking out the bottom of her head here. Of course, the face is really nice there, too. I got a little bit of smudging there on the side. It's very easy to actually clean this off. I noticed actually when I was taking the figures out of the box the first time, there was just kind of all these little, I don't know if it like little flecks of paint or something on it, but I always kept finding myself going in there and wiping away the face. I guess I'd probably just left a little bit of left behind on the nose here. Just clean that off. Her head is really top heavy, and it also results in the figure's head being really loose as well. It's nicely painted though, so certainly what it is. The bottom of her dress also matches, I wouldn't say really close to the way her hat is, but I think also in the movie too, her hat, is it the same color? Maybe it is. They've also got a little bit of trim there into the top. There's some trim down below here also in her sleeves. That, again, there's very little in the way of posability, but if you did, again, want to detach these, they're just Velcro on the back of the body. Again, if you want to detach it. One thing, though, about Shock is that you can notice right away that the plastic underneath her body isn't white like Locke is. So actually, her body, you don't have to worry about staining at all. You can also kind of see, too, like with this opened up like this, really just what little articulation these figures will really have. So when it comes to, again, like Shock's pretty much exactly the same as Locke. Head's going to rotate all the way around, super loose, unfortunately, here. The arms rotate also forward and back, and you can move the legs back and forth too. I had said really that Locke was a hard figure to get to stand. I also noticed too with Shock. Shock is a difficult one to stand too, and I think a lot of it really also has to do with the fact that Locke just has a really big, heavy head. Then on to Beryl. Now Beryl again has the cool looking mask. I love this mask, and at one point, not last Halloween, but the Halloween before, I decorated my jack-o'-lantern to look like a Shock's mask, or Beryl's mask. You can see the interior of it doesn't have, again, any of the bleed that the Locke's mask did have. Actually, you know, I didn't even look at the inside of Beryl's, or Shock's. I keep getting like the characters confused. Yeah, there's a little bit of green. There's just a little bit of green on the inside of Shock's mask. It's not bad, though. As you can see, though, with Beryl, it's completely clean, but a really nice job that they've done to paint the teeth on the front. Little slits there on the front for the nose as well. Now, one thing you can do, though, with Beryl's is normally he doesn't really hold the mask all that well. He doesn't fit the mask, but because his collar piece for his outfit sticks pretty high up like this, again, you can kind of cheat a lot of times and just tuck the mask in top of that, into the actual collar. And that seems to do a good enough job of keeping the mask in place. Even survives. Does it survive the blizzard test? It does survive the blizzard test. I mean, again, like I would really like to have all three characters displayed really with their masks. But again, the Beryl is the easiest one to do that. Let's go ahead and just put the mask off to the side. The thing I always really liked about Beryl, too, is that his design of his face looked very much like a sandworm from Beetlejuice. The fact that obviously both of them are designed by Tim Burton himself, you probably would understand then that the two character designs, the sandworm and Beryl, would have very similar traits. Big smile on the front of his face. I like the way that actually the teeth jet out like this, so they're not completely flat. In fact, if you run your finger across it, you can feel each of the individual teeth sculpted from the one next to it. Big googly eyes on this guy. Again, it's very much similar to the mask that they wear. The cool thing about Locke, Shock, and Beryl is the fact that really their faces underneath look very much like their masks. So, like, the illusion of, like, hey, are these kids dressed like monsters? And then you realize, yes, they are underneath. Now, this one also does have some really cool sculpting that they've also added. While the other two have very simple-looking suits of fabric, Beryl actually gets afforded with some additional bones there in his body. Now, I had thought, I'm just reaching off to the side here, got my black light here. I thought maybe that these had glowed, and I tried this a couple of times off camera, and it doesn't seem like these glowed. This, I think, would have been a perfect time to have some glow-in-the-dark features, though, for Beryl, but unfortunately that's not the case at all. Underneath his outfit, and we'll just peel back the Velcro, is a white body similar, though, to Locke's. Although he doesn't seem to have at all any of this staining that was problematic for Locke, his body actually still remains pretty clean and white. His arms, though, as you can see, are a completely different color just because simply, obviously, you'd be able to see his hands and his sleeves underneath. Let's just do that up. Again, standard articulation on these characters, so you're only just going to get a head swivel forward and back on the arms and forward and back on the legs. But by far, though, my favorite of the set is Beryl. Now, again, if you have been collecting the collector's dolls, which, again, I have myself Santa here. Santa, one of the reasons why with Santa is that he's just got a very large bottom. Look at the big booty on Santa Claus here. He's also got a wire, too. So with these legs and his arms, actually, you could bend his legs. But because because of the size of his body, they end up putting little peg holes. You can see right there and right there in his boots. So like Santa initially would have had a display stand, and he would have just been able to stand upright like this. I don't know where that display stand is. I must have lost it years ago. So I end up just usually putting Santa Claus on display with a little standee behind him, just enough to keep him up. But again, at least it gives you an idea how much bigger Santa is compared along with Locke, Shock, and Beryl. The only thing that's a bit of a letdown, obviously, for this set, the biggest one really being the fact that the masks don't attach properly to the face. Yes, you could cheat it really with Beryl, but you can't cheat it with Locke or Shock. Shock, at the beginning of this review, I was actually able to get this on her face. But since then, obviously, now that the camera's rolling and all the pressures of people watching this video are on me, couldn't get the mask to stay on her face. Again, long-term plan, if to put elastic band, a little elastic strap on the back of it, obviously have to glue it on both sides. I mean, a short-term fix would easily be just to add a little bit of Mac tack so it would actually adhere to the figure's face. But again, I don't know if I really want to do that. For the risk that it may end up staining the plastic, may cause damage to the plastic, maybe I might just end up doing with the elastic route instead. Because while the characters look really good, I mean, unmasked, I think for me, I'd like to really have the characters displayed, especially like Locke. Locke is the one of the three I really like to have more with a displayed mask on his face. And I can't quite pull that off because they never gave a proper means to attach them onto the face when you get these figures out of the box. Over the years, I've managed to collect some of the Nightmare Before Christmas collector's dolls that Diamond did put out. Although I don't think Diamond did the entire cast of characters. The ones at least that I have are Jack Skellington, a Santa Jack, a Sally, a Santa Sally, now Lock, Shock, and Barrel, and Santa Claus himself. But I think that they focused more of their efforts into releasing the figures because I haven't seen really much talk at all about any more collector's doll releases. I don't know if that's really what licensing Diamond has anymore when it comes to Night Before Christmas, because I know certainly there are other companies that are also doing the Nightmare product. The benefit of these figures, maybe while not having the same levels of posability that their action figure line did have, one thing that they do have going for them is their size and that they're using real fabric outfits. Unfortunately, though, for Lock, Shock, and Barrel, while all of those are great things for these figures, the one thing that they don't have is the one thing I wish they could have, the means to properly wear their masks. Again, you could go the route of using a sticky tack. My only concern, though, is with using some sticky tacks. You really have to be very specific as to which ones you're using, because I've noticed that using some wrong sticky tack ends up leaving behind a grease stain. I don't want that happening to the plastic. Elastic bands probably would have been the easier route. I might just end up doing that. I'm sure I could probably go to a crafter's store and get myself just a roll of like elasticized string. I could probably just add a few dollops of glue, maybe on the backs of each of their masks, just attach enough string to make it tight on their face. And that might just be the easiest fix that I can find to have them probably wear the mask. Because I feel like Lock, Shock, and Barrel should really wear the masks. I mean, it's just a matter of preference more than anything else. I like him really with the masks on, even though really Barrel being my favorite, he looks just as cool with his mask off. Have you guys been collecting any of the collector's dolls? I know a lot of these were released like almost even like 10 years ago. I know where I said 2018 was the release of this set, but like we're talking like 5 to 10 years ago that these came out. But have you collected any of them? Let me know down below in the comments section. If though in the meantime you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? Hope so. Obviously, we are wrapping up things right now for Nightmare Before Christmas, but there will be more Christmas spots coming your way for the rest, at least, of the last, well, we got a couple of weeks left to go before it's Christmas time. I'm going to maybe even go right to Christmas, depending on how many things that I really want to look at. It may even stretch past the point of the festive season. I don't even know. Either way, though, I hope that you guys are going to be coming back to this channel, and as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.